Here are two of the cheapest chainsaws I could find out on the market. The Stihl MSA 120C, which is $299 with the AK20 battery. This is a 4 amp hour 36 volt battery. The Wild Badger is $162 on Amazon or $199 at TSC. This is a 40 volt, realistically. It's a 36 volt battery, 4 amp hour. So we are comparing the same tools together. The Wild Badger is a 16-inch bar. The only reason I went with the 16 over the 14 is because this has the 2 lock nuts here for adjusting, which would be like a normal chainsaw. The 14, which is the exact same price, had a twist here, kind of a tool-free version. I liked this version a little bit better. I thought, you know what, it's going to be the same. Interestingly enough, we have 102 decibels on this. Although we'll have our hearing protection, as we went over a while ago, we have our Milwaukees in. I absolutely love these and I've been wearing them for the last couple tests. Awesome. This Stihl, we have a single review out on it alone, so you can see it's got great runtime, a little low on power. I'm curious as to how this Wild Badger is going to come up next to it. So we're going to just come out quick, do some cuts, kind of compare how quickly they cut through things. Remember, if you buy these, even though they're electric or battery operated chainsaws, use bar and chain oil. This is a biodegradable stuff from DeWalt. Seems to work pretty fair. Normally I use Stihl stuff, but this is where we're at today. Both batteries are fully charged. Let's get at it. As we're looking at these saws, I think it's important to note they both have plastic bucking spikes. I don't think that's going to make much of a difference in this at all. They both have a chain brake. The Wild Badger has an electric chain brake. Both these saws have a single speed trigger, no variable speed. The Wild Badger does have a safety on the side just like the Stihl, and it takes a little bit for this saw to kind of click the trigger on and then get the chain going. Not a big deal, $169, that's not a lot of money into this saw. Let's see how it does. Not bad. Let's try the Stihl. It sounds like the Stihl's chain speed is faster when there's no load, but as soon as we hit under load, there's a definite difference. Let's go back to the Wild Badger. In fact, it almost sounds like when I get into the wood, the Wild Badger chain speed or the torque kicks in instead of it bogging. It's interesting, if I push this saw a little bit, it seems to cut just as fast. It's pretty quick. Can get it to cut out. Still feels a little faster than the Stihl. I think if the Stihl could hold that chain speed, it could definitely keep up. It's an interesting balance. When I feel this saw, the Stihl feels a little more front heavy. When I hang on to it, the Wild Badger feels a little more back heavy. Could be where the battery is placed. I do feel like I can push the Wild Badger a little bit more. It's interesting when sometimes this saw cuts out a little bit, but sometimes it just works its way through. And right there, we probably have a thermal cutout. Battery does not feel warm. There we go. Not bad. I was curious if that's going to continue to cut out. There's definitely a sound difference. Stihl sounds like it's really going at it, but the torque just isn't there. It's interesting because if you really dive in and look at these two saws, the chains on them are just slightly different, with the Wild Badger being a little bit wider of a chain. But overall, the feeling of this is just very, very interesting. The Stihl feels butter smooth. Wild Badger seems to like to grip and grab a little bit. The trigger lag on the Wild Badger is hard to get used to. You push it and you have like a 1 second wait before it kicks on. Now we've cut significantly more with the Wild Badger. We are down to 3 bars. Of course, the Stihl still has full. There's no doubt here the Wild Badger has more power. Maybe it has a little bit less finesse, a little bit less of that Cadillac feeling where the Stihl really has it. But there's no doubt that that 40 volt Wild Badger has more power than the 36 volt Stihl, while they are both 36 volt. So is power the only thing we look for in a chainsaw? My answer to that is no. Obviously, I want longevity. I want a lot of different things to come together. I want a quality of build. I want ease of use. And this, to me, is a great way of making a battery fit in here, making it a little more back heavy per se, but at the same point, ergonomics is another one that I always like to look at between two saws. The Stihl to me is a funny looking saw, but at the same point, if we put the handles in the same place, you can start to see a little bit of the change. I have much more room on the Stihl to grab and hang on to. If I'm wearing gloves, which I normally am 90% of the time, this gives me a little more room. I have a lower grip on the Wild Badger. That lower grip is not going to give me as much leverage per se. I don't know that you need it on this saw, but it definitely has a little bit of a lower grip here with a higher handle in the back. So it keeps you a little more on plane, where the Stihl is lower in the back. It's a little bit off. Now the interesting portion, some people love this, some people hate it. If you want to adjust the chain, you can lift this up, and then you can simply make adjustments right here. And as you can see, I loosened it. I can tighten it, pretty simple. And then I can tighten this guy back down, and we're done. That's easy. It's great for the homeowner, but it's simple, it works. It doesn't always stay that tight. It doesn't always work that well. It's brand new. So over time, I've seen these things break off. I've seen things slip, they not work that well. As you can see here, that's definitely, the oiler is definitely working. You get a lot of oil back here. You can't get things overly tight. The Wild Badger comes with this tool. There is no place on board to put it. I really wish that there was a place on board to store this tool that would help out where you're not going to lose it. This is the more traditional way of tightening and loosening a bar. Loosen these guys up, and then we use the screwdriver portion to tighten, or we can loosen. Pretty simple. They both work. Most people prefer this way of going at it, mostly because when you tighten it, it works and it stays. Now the downside, sometimes if you don't get the best of equipment here, you'll go to tighten this guy back up and the whole chain will tighten on you, like that did a little bit. We are a touch tight there, but we're going to let that one go and see if it holds it. With that said, most people will like this. Some people will say, I don't want the tool. I don't know that anyone is going to be 100% wrong in this category. If you don't want the tool and you want ease of use, the Stihl definitely has it. You can flip through this, not worry about a tool with you, not worry about a whole bunch, just that little guy. And with gloves, this guy is hard to open. With just your fingers, that's pretty easy. This is also easy to take apart and look at what's behind here. There's actually a big gear in here that this works against and pushes things forward and back. Both you can find replacement bars for. Tractor Supply has these. You can put just about any chain you want on, as long as this is going to be a low profile. Same with the Stihl. You're not going to want to go with anything overly aggressive. You can see we're already a little bit low on power. Get away from these kind of battery operated low profile chains that don't do a lot of digging, and you will start tearing up batteries or having more and more cutouts. I hope absolutely zero homeowners purchase this saw based off of this test, but it's an interesting test because can you get through a lot of wood if you need to? Let's give this a go. Obviously the Wild Badger has more power. There's a few differences, but let's go one more time. Would assume you can see in the camera there's a lot of catching, a lot of vibrations that the Wild Badger has. Not a huge deal. Take a look at this. This is going to be everything this Stihl has, so let's give it a go. Not a big deal. One more cut. I would assume you could see that this is almost like Cadillac smooth as we go through there. More realistically, this to me is what you'd be taking care of with a battery operated chainsaw. That's going to be something very small. Cleanup work. Maybe this is a little extreme on the small side. But I want to demonstrate a little bit more of the comfort factor. And while it's great to have a battery operated saw here, we only have a single speed. So when we pull the trigger, we wait for this saw to catch up. And it's not about how well it cuts or that it's bouncing around. This is just tiny stuff. It's more about how many times are you going to go through and hit that trigger, wait. And then do you want something that's a little bit more smooth? To me, that kind of gets into play here. And it's not all about the chain. It's also just how everything flows. That's just this chain getting quite dull when it really bounces around like that. Some people would say you get what you pay for, so in this situation you'd hope that this saw is going to give you a little bit more comfort. And I think that faster chain speed, a little less kerf, bites in a little more. Can we get it bounce around? Yes. I'm sure. Getting a little unsafe with it, yes, we can make it bounce around. But with that said, you can see how smooth this is. It just wants to get up to speed quickly, the trigger is quick, and I think that for the money, that's what makes this a lot more comfortable. Here's where it gets interesting, right? Some people are gonna say use a chainsaw once every 4 years when it's needed. $162, I've got a great chainsaw here that will get through with more power if need be, and ergonomics, trigger, doesn't matter. And then on the other side, somebody's gonna be like, well, I use my chainsaw to clean up every year, and even though it's smaller, less powerful, I like how smooth it is. I like how everything operates, and I like the ergonomics because I'm gonna have it in my hands more, and they're willing to pay almost double. That's the free market, I guess, and that's where people go out and have to make that decision on their own as to what they need. And when you compare these two chainsaws, there's a stark difference in power and comfort. The Wild Badger definitely takes the cake on power, and if you're going to do any large tree cutting and you had these two to choose from, the Wild Badger is going to be the one you're going to go to and pick up. If you have a lot of small stuff to clean up and you're looking for comfort and ergonomics, the Stihl is going to be definitely where someone is going to go without even a question. So it's all about where you spend your time and where you want to spend your money. That is where I want you to chime in the bottom and leave me some comments. What would you pick? Both are sold at interestingly close places to me. Tractor Supply Company, you might not have one near you, I do. I've got multiple, so they're sold there. Ace Hardware and almost every John Deere dealer sells Stihl, so it's not really hard to pick that up either. It's a matter of double the money. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, what you think of all this stuff. I'd be very curious. I know some people are going to come out and say buy tool battery chainsaws because then you can use them for multiple different tools. I agree with you. With that said, give me a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.